Welcome to the 5 for 2 podcast with me, your host Adele, where we say no to careers where you're trading 5 days of misery for 2 days of fun. A place we discuss all things career, confidence, and money moves. I want to motivate, teach, and empower ambitious women to achieve more, earn more, feel more confident, and enjoy the work they do. It's all about believing you can have everything you want in your career and then going and getting it. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome to another episode. I'm actually really excited to speak about this because if any of you are like me, if I have too much debt, my brain is absolute chaos. Like it is a mess. I can't get my life in order when I've got debt. I just keep thinking about the debt and how I'm going to pay off the debt and I need more money for the debt. So I've got a lovely guest who's going to speak to us about how she used her 9 to 5 to pay off debt. So you guys know I love talking about money. So if you listened to last week's episode, I had a guest last week, which was Ange, and we were speaking all about how to invest. And today I have got the lovely Veronia Spain. She's a money coach and she helps women save more money and start investing. And today we are going to be talking about how to pay off your debt using your 9 to 5. Like we don't need extra jobs. We don't need side hustles. Let's talk about how you can do it with your 9 to 5 so that you don't have to have the chaos in your brain that I get when I'm trying to pay off debt. So Veronia, hello, and welcome.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here. Tell my audience about you. Who are you? What do you do?
Yep, so as you mentioned before, I am a money coach and I specifically help women to save more money and start investing so they can start working towards financial independence. And the reason why I do that is because I also wanted to work towards financial independence. And if you don't know what financial independence means, basically, I wanted to have the option to do what I want to do when I want to do it without having to rely on my job to pay the bills. So I wanted to start investing money that will help me to essentially pay my bills so that I can, work wherever I want and do whatever I want. So I'm essentially teaching women how to do the same thing.
Amazing. Right. So you are helping us, all of us women here, to save some money so that we can become financially independent. And I think that's really key. And it ties so well into what we spoke about last week in last week's episode. But just having financial independence, not feeling like you've got to always be at work to pay the bills, not being worried about being sick. Because that used to be a big one for me. Like if I'm sick and I have too many sick days, I can't live off sick pay. So how am I going to pay the bills? And there are times when we all get sick or our kids get sick, whatever it is. So yeah, financial independence is such a big one. And I know everyone listening is going to be excited about this episode. So yeah, and by the time this episode comes out, you guys would have seen me and Veronia go live because yeah, we are going live today, guys. But anyway, let's not talk about that. Let's get into all of this. So thanks for introducing yourself, Veronia. I want to dive straight in, to be honest with you. I want you to share your story about how you paid off 16K's worth of debt in less than 8 months. 18 months. I had 5K debt at one point and it took me way more than 2 years to go up. So the fact that you were able to reduce 16K in less than 18 months is crazy to me. Talk us through it. How did you do it? How did your 9 to 5 help? Let the listeners know.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's probably worth talking about how I actually got into the debt in the first place. So the first thing I had was a maxed out overdraft. So I had my overdraft from university and I had basically used it almost as part of my student loan where I decided to use it to pay for holidays and just anything and everything. It was honestly a mess. And I kept saying that, when I get my first job, I'm going to pay it off. I got my first job. I was working in recruitment, didn't pay it off. It was still maxed out. Then went back to uni to do my master's. Again, it was still maxed out. And then I finally got my graduate job. It was still maxed out. So I had the maxed out £2,000 or dollars overdraft. And once I then also started my job, I had a new graduate job and I'm actually originally from London, but I had to move out of London for this new job. And so when I moved out for this new job, I actually had to drive to work because you couldn't really take public transport. And I had this old car that I had bought at university. It was a banger that was, I think, like 15 years old or something. And I remember going into work, seeing everyone with nicer cars. And I was like, I'm a working girl now. I can't be driving this type of car. So I decided that I was going to get myself a new car, but I couldn't buy the car in cash because I didn't have any savings, never saved money before at all. And so I decided that I would have to just finance my car, not realizing that the car that I had financed had an 11.6% interest rate. But I didn't realize this. And so I then bought the car, and that car was, I think, about 11 grand. But because of the interest, I ended up paying about 14 grand for the car. And so plus the overdraft, which was another 2,000, meant that I was about 16 grand in debt. So yeah, it was a lot. I didn't actually even realize how much debt I had until I started working on my personal finances. So randomly after work, I was kind of questioning, how do people actually build wealth? Because obviously I saw people, working in corporate. I saw all of these directors and they were working these really long hours. And I was like, is that actually how people build wealth? Is that the way to go? And so I decided that I was going to start learning about it. I bought this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it completely changed my perspective. Because what it was saying was that actually, just because you may be in like a high performing job and making all this money doesn't necessarily mean you're wealthy. Because so many people spend money on liabilities, which basically take money out of their pocket. And so a lot of people that maybe look like they're wealthy on the outside, they're actually broke. And people who are wealthy invest in things called assets, and assets basically put money in your pocket. So these are things like investments, savings, and all of those things. And so what I realized was that I just had liabilities and I didn't have any assets. So my main goal was to actually then reduce those liabilities, so then pay off that debt so that I can now really start building wealth and start working towards things like financial independence. So I essentially made a plan where I was like, okay, I'm going to start paying off this debt. And it did take me a while. Like the first 6 months, it took me that long to just save 1,000. So my first 1,000, it took me about 6 months because I had never saved before. And I wanted to save a bit of money first so that I could just have like a cushion before I start overpaying on my debt. And so when I was trying to save that money, I kept dipping into my savings because other expenses would come up. And I was like, how am I going to do this? But then it got to a point where, because I didn't give up, I kept trying to save that money. I built that skill so that when I eventually started saving more consistently, I was then able to save 200, 300, 400, 500, and then start putting that towards my debt and overpay on my debt. And so even though it took me 6 months to just save my first 1,000, the next 12 months, I ended up paying off the 16 grand essentially.
Wow. Literally, my mind is blown. So it took you 6 months, did you say, for the first just 1,000?
Yeah.
But then basically, in essence, you paid off 15K in a year.
Yeah.
That's what you're basically saying.
Yeah.
So many things came to mind while you were talking, like so many things. First thing that popped into my head was, guys, this is what we talk about. When you hear us coaches banging on about do not give up before the breakthrough. This right here, it took Veronia 6 months to save 1,000. Now, anyone else would be thinking, oh my gosh, if it took me 6 months to save 1,000, it's going to take me another 6 months to save 2,000. It's going to take me years to save this debt. However, keep taking action. That's what I got from what you just said, because you kept taking action. And then actually, instead of it taking you every 6 months just to save 1,000, in a year, you cleared 15K's worth of debt, which means you just kept going until you figured it out. And I think this is something that's so important. People see other people winning in life or having the things they want, and we assume that, oh, they're just better than us or they're just lucky. When actually, they just kept going. Nobody knows what they're doing, guys. We all figure out along the way. And Veronia just is proof. She literally has just told you how she figured it out along the way. She didn't make her past results dictate her future results. And just my whole mind, while you were talking, I was like, you're like the definition of keep going. Your breakthrough is coming. Because if it took me, I'm not going to lie to you, if it took me 6 months to save 1,000, I would have probably started to feel defeated. I would have just been like, I'm never paying this debt off. Like, I would have felt so defeated. The fact that you were able to figure it out. In that time, were you in the same job or did you change jobs at any time?
No, I was in the same job. And
I love it.
that was my first graduate job as well. So I actually had a 27.5K salary and I ended up, paying it off with the salary. I actually ended up getting my pay increase after I paid off the debt.
Guys, did you hear that? Just need anyone who didn't hear that, rewind real quickly. She paid off that 16K's worth of debt in 18 months on a 27K salary. A lot of you that are listening, I know for a fact, earn more than that. A lot of you that have been listening to me or worked with me earn more than that and will say to me, you can't pay off debt, or that you're struggling because of debt. Veronia used to earn 27K and she still paid off the debt. So imagine, and then she got her pay increase after she'd already paid off the debt. So now she's got a lot more money because not only does she know how to pay off debt, she now has the pay increase in her 9 to 5. And imagine continually increasing your salary while already knowing how to pay off debt. And that makes me think of something someone told me once. They were like to me, money is not the answer to your money problem. They were like, more money won't make you have more money. Being better with your money is what's going to make you have more money. And I believe that because I remember being on like a 30K salary and traveling like 4 or 5 times a year, long haul, and people being like, I don't understand how you're staying in 5-star hotels and there's no way you can only be earning that. And I was like, I'm just really good with my money. And the thing was, I was only ever good with my money when it came to somehow saving for holidays. I was never good with my money with anything else. I just needed why. That why always helped me. And I wasn't in loads of debt either. I was just able to figure out how to pay off holidays in a longer period of time rather than trying to do everything last minute. But you saying that you didn't get your pay rise until after that, what were you doing? Like, just a couple of things. Like, what did you have to cut your spending, like in all areas? Like, were you just living like a hermit life to be able to pay off this?
Yeah,
that's not a problem.
It's so interesting because I think, when people hear my story, they think that I pretty much just stayed at home and never saw the light of day and then that was it. But one of the things that I realized is that I actually had a spending problem because I always say, you will know if you either have a spending problem or an income problem. And it was funny because I knew I had a spending problem because when I even started my graduate job, I had that salary come in. That was the first time I'd even earned that amount of money anyway, because before I was obviously at uni working part-time. Plus, I was also finishing off my part-time job at my university. So I had 2 paychecks coming in, but I was still living paycheck to paycheck. I was still spending money on everything. And I knew I had a problem because I couldn't tell you what I spent my money on. So that's how I knew there was a problem. And I knew, okay, I have a spending problem. So what I did is rather than cut back on everything, what I decided to do was actually question and ask myself, well, what do I actually want to spend money on that's going to be important to me, that's going to benefit me? And what can I cut back on things that I just don't really care about very much and just won't make an impact on me? So, for example, for me, I realized that I would tend to buy clothes just because they were on sale. I wouldn't wear those clothes, but I would just buy it because I saw it was 50% off, 60% off. And then it would just be chilling in my wardrobe and I would never wear them. And so I asked myself, okay, rather than spend the money on clothes that I'm never going to wear, why don't I just spend money on clothes that I know I will actually wear, which means that I will drastically reduce how often I spend money on clothes because I had enough clothes in my wardrobe anyway. So it was small things like that where I realized I was spending money on things that I didn't care about. And because I was spending that much money, I then couldn't save that money and put that towards my debt. So that was one of the biggest things. And the second thing was I focused on my biggest expenses. So for example, for me, my housing was probably going to be one of my biggest expenses, and my car was also my second biggest expense. So because of where I was working, I realized that I don't typically stay in the house very often because all I would do is literally go to work for a couple of days and then I would go back to London and I would spend like a good few days in London. So I just told myself, okay, well, why don't I just rent out a room and literally just become a lodger and just pay rent for that so that I have so much more money to then put towards my debt, because once I do that, I'm hardly in the house anyway. Like I literally will just go there to sleep and then I'm back at work and I go to the gym in the morning, go to work, come back and then go back to London. So I found a place where it was a family home and they were looking for someone and they charged me £300 rent a month for everything.
What?
300.
What?
Yeah.
What? You see, guys, when you make a decision that you're going to change things in your life, things that are supposed to show up. That is an aligned result, I feel like. 300. You decided you wanted to pay off all this debt and somehow you randomly, that's not even heard of.
Exactly.
That's not even heard of in the UK. That is 300 for everything. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Exactly. And what that meant was that I then didn't have to cut back on things that were more important to me because I didn't really care about like where I was staying because I'd only be there a few days a week. It meant that, yes, I could also overpay on my debt really quickly, but it also meant that I had money to spend to still go out with my friends and to still see my family. So I was able to do the best of both. And it was simply because I made the decision to think about what was more important to me, what didn't I care about, and could I just reduce my expenses in that area?
Oh my gosh, this conversation is really like, it's just feeling so good because my theme of this morning has been aligned sacrifice, as in making temporary sacrifices for your long-term goals, but not in a way that feels so uncomfortable that you're just unhappy. You literally just reduce the things that you don't care about so that you could still do all the things you still enjoy doing and then you still could pay off your debt. So it's the alignment for me. Like today's message just feels like telling someone who's listening needs to hear this, but your temporary short-term sacrifice is worth it for your long-term vision and your long-term goals. Sometimes the things that we think we need, if we look into it, we really don't care about. We only think we need them because that's what everyone else is doing. The fact that you were able to rent a room for 300, that's amazing. But also you were barely staying there. So it wasn't like you were putting yourself in this really uncomfortable situation because you already knew you were traveling back and forth. And a lot of the fashion girlies that are listening, because I know a lot of you, go to your wardrobe right now. You have got a load of clothes that you've never worn. How much money is there? Some of you need to click on Vinted. This is not an advert, by the way, for Vinted, but some of you need to click on Vinted and sell some of those clothes so you can make some of your money back. Because I definitely relate to what you were saying about just clothes. Like they'll be on sale and I'll be like, oh, that's really nice. I'll probably wear it one day. The wardrobe is full of stuff that you're never actually wearing. And I know there's a lot of fashion girlies out here that do that. Buy the clothes for when you need them. You've got an event, you're going somewhere, you want the piece of clothing. Don't just have clothes sitting in your wardrobe because a lot of you have probably got 20, 30, 40K sitting in your wardrobe for no reason. 40K that you could have been using right now. The 40K that a lot of you are saying, oh, I wish I had 40 more K for these bills or for this food or to go out more or to travel more or to feel a little bit more financially free. Because when you were talking about financial independence, that's a big thing for me. And like when I got made redundant at the end of last year, having learned to save previously meant that I didn't have to kill myself to find another job. I was like, even though it still felt stressful, just because not having a job feels stressful, actually there was no real stress. When I had a conversation with someone and they were like, why are you stressed out? Ain't your bill still being paid? I was like, yeah. They were like, how? I was like, because I've got a lot of savings. They were like, exactly. Other people can't say that. Other people need to go and get a job tomorrow. If they made redundant, they have to use the redundancy money. And then as soon as it runs out, they need to go back to work. That wasn't my case. I was able to use whatever redundancy money I had, but also use more savings money. So I was actually out of work from like November all the way right through to like April. And it wasn't like a desperation because it was like, yeah, my bills are paid because I've been able to previously save. Whereas when I was doing the whole fashion girly thing and like just spending money on, and I agree with you, there's areas of our life that we can look at and realize that maybe we're overspending or spending money, but not realizing it and then telling ourselves, oh, we don't earn enough when actually you earn more than enough. And I think that's what I took from what you were saying anyway, that actually we think it's a thought. It's actually a thought more than it is a reality. And you looked at the reality and sort of broke it down. So I think that leads really nicely because my next question actually was going to be, with all these things going on with bills and like obviously cost of living, especially in the UK, like my electric and gas bills have doubled, like not even, they've doubled, like it doesn't even make sense. So with all that going on, how can people still save? And I feel like you've already answered this because it's about looking at different areas of your life. But yeah, how can people, anything else you want to add to what you've just said? Because I feel like what you said really helps. But is there anything else people can do in this time in the world, how the world is now, how our bills are now, especially for us girls in the UK? What can we do for people to still save? How can we still save in these situations?
Yeah, I think it goes back to identifying what problem you might have, whether you have a spending problem or whether you have an income problem. Because, for example, there are a lot of people that were already struggling before this cost of living crisis. And so if that was the case, you would really need to think about focusing on your income because there's only so much that you can cut back. If your income is only, 1,000 a month, but your core bills come to 1,500 or $2,000, then that's the problem. You're going to need to focus on trying to increase that income. Whereas if you realize that you probably did have a spending problem even before the cost of living crisis and, all of this high inflation, that's when you then want to think, actually, am I overspending in some areas where I can just, again, reduce in areas that I don't necessarily care about, but also being quite intimate with your numbers and thinking realistically, okay, how much do my expenses come to? And are there ways that I can save on some of these expenses? So, for example, there are easy ways like with car insurance, that is also increasing as well. But when you pay monthly for some car insurance, they actually charge a lot of interest. So it's almost asking yourself, can I afford to pay annually so that I don't have to pay all of that interest and I can make some savings there? So it's almost kind of being a bit creative, looking at your expenses, seeing if there are ways that you can potentially save, but also recognizing when you might actually have an income problem where you might have to, think about getting that promotion or changing jobs or starting that side hustle.
I love that. It's true, because sometimes it is really an income problem, not a spending problem. Like my mum always used to say, you cannot get blood out of a stone. So that saying always stuck with me, because if you don't have it, you just don't have it. So the only way to have it, and guys, just go back and listen to some of my other episodes, but if you don't have it income-wise, get more. Your current skills are worth so much more than you think they are. You can get paid double, triple, or at least 10K more than you're currently on for your current skills. I think a lot of us get comfortable doing the job and thinking that the job we're in is the be all and end all, and that's how we can get paid. Like Veronia used to work in recruitment, so did I. Coming from recruitment, I know that one recruitment company might pay me 30K, another one might pay me 55 for the exact same work, the exact same job. Furthermore, there are big companies that I remember I did 360 recruitment. So I had to find the candidates, find the clients, do the compliance, fill the jobs, do everything. But then when I worked for another company, who were paying me more, by the way, they had a whole compliance team. All I had to do was find the candidates and fill the jobs. So I didn't have to do the references. I didn't have to do the DBS checks. I didn't have to do any of that. But I was getting paid more to do less. So guys, sometimes it's about coming out of your comfort zone and going and looking. If you don't have a LinkedIn and you listen to my podcast, I'm very disappointed. Just go and get a LinkedIn now. Listen, anything you haven't done before doesn't matter. What can you change today? This podcast is about talking about, it's not about beating yourself up for having debt. It's about what can you do from this point to make a change. It's about listening to Veronia's story and understanding that if she was able to do this with a 9-to-5, yes, now she's a business owner. Yes, now she's a money coach. But before this, she was able, as a graduate, coming out of uni, getting her first job, able to do these things. So I want you guys to think a lot of us are further along than she was at the point when she was able to do this. A lot of us already have jobs paying well over 40, 50K. A lot of us maybe don't have mortgages yet. Some of us do have mortgages, but maybe you're renting, maybe you're paying your mortgage. But a lot of us are in a different situation to what Veronia was in, but we're earning a lot more. And if, like Veronia said, that your income isn't enough, like if your outgoings are $2,000 a month, but your income is $2,000 a month, that's not going to work, guys. Like it's too spot on, because one little problem. If your outgoings are $3,000, but your incomings are 2.5, that is not going to work, because you're always going to be £500 in deficit. You need to find a job. If you're outgoings are $3,000, you need to find a job paying you 4.5 minimum after tax. And it's your job to go out there. And there's so many resources to help you, whether you listen to my podcast, because my podcast, I don't care what anyone says, gold dust. It is your cheat code. You want to change careers? Start at the beginning. Episode 1, work your way through. I have people email me, message me and tell me, like, this is so helpful. There are other podcasts. Like, you guys know, last month or the month before, I was interviewed by Jazz. Jazz has her own podcast. Go and listen to those other career podcasts. The other Jazz, so there's 2 Jazz. There's just Jazz, if you're looking on Instagram, and then there's Jasmine Escalara. They both interviewed me and they both have amazing career podcasts. Go and look at them. I might drop them in the show notes. Look at content. Someone like Veronia, find her Instagram, which she's going to share with us later. Go and look at what she does. Find ways that you can save money, as well as find ways to increase your income. And that, for a lot of us, is through our 9-to-5. It isn't by starting a side hustle and having a business. You shouldn't have to start a side hustle to make more money. You shouldn't have to get 2, 3, 4 jobs so that you can make money. Your one job, and this is from someone who used to have like 3 jobs at one point in her life when she was much younger, like when I finished college. I was able to leave 3 jobs and find one job that paid me that same salary. So guys, it's doable. Like, I was the person, because that's what I learned. My mum used to have like loads of jobs. So I thought that was normal. The only way to make a lot of money was to work really hard. When actually, when I was able to scrap all my jobs and replace them with one 9 to 5, working 40 hours a week versus 3 different jobs where I was working like morning, noon and night, guys, it's such a big deal. So if you have an income problem, it's about learning how to negotiate better on your salary and applying for better jobs. I think that's the easiest thing. Just go and apply for better roles. Like a lot of us will stay, like I say, stuck in our salary bracket because we think, well, if I'm on that now, that's all I can earn. What if some companies just pay better? Go and find those companies, guys. Go and find the money. And if it's the other way around and it's a spending issue, everything Veronia said, everything she said, do that, because I related to so much of what she was saying. So Veronia, my next question for you is, and I think I've touched on this as well. Well, actually, we've touched on this, so I might not ask this. I was going to ask you, can just one job be enough to reduce debt? And I think your story has proved that absolutely one job can, especially because you didn't even get a pay rise. You just was using the money you had and got really, really creative. I feel like paying off debt can give you more options, but some people might not agree with that. But what are your thoughts on that statement? The statement that paying off debt gives you more options?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think personally it can. I think one of the biggest things I realized is just from a mindset perspective, because I realized that when I didn't have to worry about debt payments, I could use that to then start thinking about my other financial goals. And for me, paying off the debt was only a part of my journey. It wasn't the be all and end all. For me, I knew that once I then paid off my debt, I could then start focusing on, saving up for things like an emergency fund, now starting to invest so I can start working towards financial independence. And I would also say that it actually opened me up to start thinking, okay, how am I also going to make more money because I now have these other financial goals? So I actually do think it can give you options, but I think it's also important to remember that when you are paying off your debt, it's just not the be all and end all. That won't be your only focus. You probably will have other goals that you want to work towards.
I love that. And I love that you said, like, it's not be all and end all, because when you've paid off the debt, you now in theory have given yourself a pay rise, because all that money you were using to pay off the debt, you no longer have to pay off the debt. But that doesn't mean now, ladies, that we go back to spending money on all the clothes and all the nonsense on. Like Veronia said, it also means that we can now look at other things. I actually never thought about investing until I paid down all my debt. The day I paid off all my debt, and then I had all this extra money. And obviously, like I said at the beginning, I like to travel. So I started going on all these holidays. But then I was like, what else could I do with this money? Is there a way to make this money make me money? And that was the first time I ever looked into investing. Before that, like you said, like my brain was only focused on paying off the debt. I hadn't thought about what are my other goals. So I like that you said, like, for the people that are paying off debt, what are your other goals? Because when this debt goes away, what else can you start to do? Or while you're paying off the debt, what else can you do? Like, there should be more to your money goals than just paying off debt. And I totally agree with that. I didn't start investing in the stock market or starting to invest in like bonds or things like that until I'd paid off the debt. And I was like, oh, I've got all this extra money. What do I want to do with it? And I think having my daughter and just other things in life were like, I want to create more money. I don't just want to be like putting money into a hole. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for memories and creating memories. I would rather spend money to create a memory like on travel or something like that than just only have it sitting in the bank. But I want to be able to do, to be honest, I want to be able to do both. I want to be able to have the emergency fund, stack my money, invest and travel. And the only way you can do that is, like you said, having other sort of goals. So yeah, paying off debt, I feel like can give you, I agree, can give you more options. And options are freedom to me. Like, what do you feel like options are freedom? Like it gives you just that little bit more freedom in life when you've got more options with your money?
Yeah, 100%. Because one of the things that I was thinking about is when I first got into debt, my question was, if my job was to make me redundant now, how am I going to make these car payments? How am I going to be able to make these debt repayments? And I think the minute I then paid off that debt, and by the time I paid off this debt, it was during COVID. So, everyone was doing furlough, people were getting redundant left, right, and center. And I was just sitting here like, well, if they make me redundant, I don't have any payments to worry about. And at that time, I'd also saved up my emergency fund. So I was like, will actually be quite good. Whereas I could see my other colleagues, they were so stressed because they realized that if they got made redundant, they wouldn't know when they would be how long they would be able to pay their bills for. And again, as you mentioned before, they may then also have the scarcity mindset to think, I need to find a job as soon as possible. And it may not even be a job that they actually like, but they may not have a choice because they have to pay their bills. Whereas I realized if I know I don't have any payments to make, and plus I've also been able to save some money to have an emergency fund, I could then choose a job that I actually want to apply for rather than having to apply because I have no choice.
That's really important because redundancy is a reality for any of us. Anyone now, like I was in my last job 11 years, redundancy is a reality for any of us. Like someone I interviewed on the podcast last year, I think it was, Hanan, she's been made redundant like 3 different times. Like redundancy is a thing that can happen. Pandemic has taught us 9 to 5s aren't secure. Everyone always was like 9 to 5s are secure, they're secure, they're secure. Your 9 to 5 is secure as much as it is able to be secure in the sense of each month you get paid, that's your security. After that, there's no real security. Restructures happen. Companies fail a lot now, especially like when you walk down the high street now and how many businesses have shut down? How many, like I never thought I'd see the day that Mothercare did not exist in the UK. Like, let's be real. I didn't think I'd see the day when Topshop didn't exist in the UK. Let's be real on like things that shut down that we saw closing down over a certain period of time. And then, yeah, some things reopened, some things didn't. My point is, if companies are shutting down, we have to be realistic. And the fact that you had your emergency fund and you were able to know that actually, if I need to, I can use that to pay these bills, it does put you in a better position. So I think like everything you've shared is so much more than just paying off debt. It's like the beginning. And I think that's amazing because like you say that you help women save money and start to invest. I think the saving money and the paying off debt is just the start of achieving all your money goals. And I think that's such an amazing thing because women, we're not always taught about like making money, handling money, getting great with money. We're sort of taught like, yeah, get a job and then you're going to get married anyway. And then maybe your husband's going to take care of that sort of stuff. When actually, for a lot of us, that might not be the case. And for a lot of us, we want to have our own financial understanding. So I love what you do and everything you've shared. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, what are 3 tips on how someone can start getting their debt down? Like 3 tips that you would give someone if they came to you and said to you, like, how can I start working on my debt?
Yeah, 100%. So the first tip I would say is learn how to save. And I think that can be considered quite unconventional because people will be thinking, oh, shouldn't you just go into attacking your debt? But as you mentioned, when you're trying to pay off your debt, that's not the only thing that you're going to be focusing on. And for me, I realized that by learning how to save, it gave me such a great foundation to not only be able to have money to overpay on my debt, but then I could start focusing on other things like, you know, creating an emergency fund. It gave me the freedom to now also start investing as well. So if you can learn how to save and then keep those savings and put that towards your debt, you'll be able to use that same skill for your other financial goals. So that's the first tip. The second tip I would say is, what I mentioned before is try to identify what problem you have. Do you have an income problem or do you have a spending problem? If you have an income problem, again, talk to Adele, work on trying to increase that income so that you have money to now start putting towards that debt. And if you have a spending problem, then work on learning how to control your spending, not to the point where you have to cut back on everything, but you control your spending to the point where, again, you have another buffer so that you can use that to overpay on your debt. And then the third tip I would give is actually think about creating a plan for your debt and not just paying off the debt. So think about, you know, are you also going to be thinking about an emergency fund, saving up for your house deposit? Where does the paying off debt part fit into that plan so that you can work out, okay, I have to pay off this debt, then I'm going to save for my emergency fund, and then I'm also going to start investing. So it almost reminds you that, yes, it may feel like it's taking a while to pay off your debt, but again, that's not the end destination. You already have a plan, and that will hopefully keep you motivated to keep going.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for everything you've shared. It has been so helpful. I'm also super excited about the fact that we're going to do a live later on today. I'm even more motivated. Can you let everyone know where they can connect with you?
Yes. So I have 2 main platforms that your audience can find me. So the first one is on YouTube. So if you type in Veronia Spain, I have, I think, over 150 videos talking about, you know, the things that we mentioned today. I also have Instagram, again, Veronia Spain, and I also offer one-on-one coaching. So if you are interested in trying to save more money and you want to start investing and start working towards, you know, financial independence, that is also something I offer. So you can book a call to find out more about working with me.
Oh, lovely. Guys, run. Like, don't walk. Go and follow Veronia on all platforms. I'm going to drop it in the show notes as well. So you'll be able to click on her links and then go straight to her YouTube and also straight to her Instagram. Book a call with her. If you haven't learned anything in this little short space of time, I don't know what to tell you. But the amount that I have learned and how much she's blown my mind, you guys need to book a call if debt is something you want to get down, if you also want to start saving, and if you want to start investing and making a lot more money. Because yes, I teach how to increase your 9-to-5 money, but once you increase that, what do you want to do with it? What are your long-term goals? Because having money just to have money, what's the point? Having money for me personally is not all about material things. It is about options. It is about freedom. It is about being able to say no to people when I don't want to do something no more, and not having to do jobs just because I have to, because I need to pay bills. I want to have extra money so I can say no, can take 6 months off if I want, and I can feel more relaxed in my life. So it's not just about material things. So when you increase that salary, when you start making more, what else do you want to do? So yeah, go and connect with Veronia. Veronia, thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait for everyone to hear this episode. And yeah, guys, tune in to the next episode. You guys know where to always find me, but head over to the show notes so you can find all Veronia's links. I hope this episode gave you exactly what you needed and motivated you to confidently take steps towards your next career move. If you enjoyed it, screenshot and share it on your socials, tag me on Instagram, and come join my community of amazing women working on leveling up their confidence and career. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.